Hello and welcome to yet another session of the NPTEL course titled 20th Century American Drama. So we are reading through this play Death of a Salesman by Arthur Miller. So in the previous session we looked at this scene where Willy Loman is being fired by his boss Hobart, and how he's responding to that, how he's reacting to that, and we also began to see how that scene signified his downfall in very tangible ways. His world comes crashing down around him, and right after this, from this scene onwards, we find that he's just relapsing into these past memories. There are a lot of memories overlapping, there are a lot of instances coming together, and just the way it had always been happening, we find that Willy Loman finds it difficult to differentiate his reality from his memories, from his fantasy life. And his memory is a very orchestrated, manufactured memory. He chooses not to remember the unpleasant things. He only chooses to remember those set of things which give him a sense of security, which boosts his ego, and he chooses to remember only those episodes from his life where through which it's possible for him to have an alternate reality. So there's a double life in a sense that he leads by trimming his memory, by editing his memory in particular ways, just so it focuses only on such aspects in which he comes across as a very successful person, successful individual, a successful salesman, and a successful family person. So right after this scene where he is getting fired by Howard, and how he also exposes himself a bit, because we get to know that he is his helplessness becomes more accentuated, because it also combined with a sense of false pride, and for which Howard also calls him out. And soon after this, we find that he very soon the projected memory of Ben begins to invade his mind, and even without much of a transition in between the times which happens over here. And here Willy is now inhabiting a time slot in his past life where he is having this conversation with Ben. There's an instance which in Willy's mind could have been life-changing. There is a proposition which is being offered to Willy from Ben in order to join him in Alaska. So this is how the conversation goes. How did you do it? Did you wind up the Alaska deal already? It doesn't take much time if you know what you're doing. Just a short business trip, boarding ship in an hour. Wanted to say goodbye. So there's something very appealing in Ben's way of dealing with his business, dealing with Willy, who Willy finds it extremely appealing. And this is a kind of business that ideally Willy Loman also wanted to know. And we find that Willy is totally in awe at what Ben is doing. And at this point, Ben is also looking for someone to help him in his business. He says, I've bought timberland in Alaska. I need a man to look after things for me. God, timberland, me and my boys in those grand outdoors. So Willy is fantasizing this life that he could have had with Ben. And Ben also, makes it. Ben stands for a very different kind of work ethic, a different kind of professional, route, which Linda does not really approve of. So Ben says, you've a new continent at your doorstep, William. Get out of these cities. They're full of talk and time payments and codes of law. Screw on your fists and you can fight for a fortune up there. So that is what Ben does in Alaska, and this is how he makes a fortune. And that is something, this is hard work too, but somehow it's very romantically presented through Willy's eyes. And when Biff also wants to do something which is pretty much the same, to move out of the city and make a fortune, to fight for things and make it happen, Willy Loman finds it difficult to accept that. So, but at this point in Willy's memory, he's totally fascinated with what Ben is doing, and he's excitedly telling Linda that he's got a proposition for me in Alaska. But Linda always had a practical mind, and we find that even in Willy's memories, she stays very secure, very grounded, and her responses are very practical too. So she says, he's got a beautiful job here, yeah? And Willie is, of course, trying to argue with Linda that it's going to be very different over there. And when Linda is saying, "You're doing well enough, Willie," Ben asks this question, "Enough for what, my dear?" So this is a question of priorities. This is a question of what kind of material comforts that each person wants out of life and what each system can offer. We're not very sure if Willie Loman would have actually become a success if he had left for Alaska. Maybe it's just a fantasy of him. He is just thinking in his mind that he could have made it big. Yeah, but Willie's life, Willie's value system, his ethics is more about how people like him. So look at how Linda is responding to this. Frightened of Ben and angry at him. Don't say those things to him. Enough to be happy right here, right now. Why must everybody conquer the world? You're well liked and the boys love you. And someday, why Old Man Wagner told him just the other day that if he keeps it up, he'll be a member of the firm. Didn't he, Willie? So we get to know that none of these promises seem to hold water in the long run. So Wagner is unable to keep his promise. This happens right after Wagner's son Howard fires Willie. But at the same time, we find that Linda is also believing in this the same thing that Willie upholds very high, about being well liked, about being everyone's pet, and that seems to that somehow in his mind should translate to success. So the fatal flaw that Willie Loman identifies in his life is that this love and admiration that people seem to have for him and for his sons, they haven't really translated into any kind of material comfort. They haven't translated into material success. So he's forever trying to go back to the past and find those moments which gave him a high at that moment. And while remembering those moments, it still gives him a high. It's something which keeps him anchored very strongly in spite of everything that is going wrong with his life in the present. And Ben is, of course, trying to make a case for the proposition that he has put forward to Willie, but Willie, of course, makes this decision not to go. And Willie is in awe with the kind of life that Ben has made out for him, and at the same time, he also wants to pursue his life as a salesman. He wants to make it big as a salesperson as well. And look at how, at this point, Willie is talking about his son. And this almost makes us, that's a tragedy of this. It's a very tragic scene too, in some sense, when we think about what happened to Biff later on and the utter helplessness of it, the utter pointlessness of these memories, which really do not mean much in the past or in the present. So this is how Willie is talking about Biff. Without a penny to his name, 3 great universities are begging for him. And from there, the sky's the limit, because it's not what you do, Ben. It's who you know and the smile on your face. It's contacts, Ben, contacts. So there are a number of scenes that we have already noticed in the play where Willie actually believes that it's all about the kind of personality that you project before others, which is why he also ends up giving these they're giving the kind of advice to his sons, which had also, perhaps misled them in some form or the other. So that's another scene that we will shortly take a look at in terms of how Willie thinks, as well as the others think. Somehow, there was something messed up in the way the boys were brought up, in the kind of value system that they were taught to believe in. The whole wealth of Alaska passes over the lunch table at the Commodore Hotel, and that's a wonder. The wonder of this country, that a man can end with diamonds here on the basis of being liked. Yeah. So Willie strongly believes that. It keeps coming back. So you find that you've already noticed this in this play, that this is something which gets underscored over and over again by Willie's character, that a man can achieve anything in this country if he's well liked, if he has got the right contacts. That's something that he tries to pull off with Howard and fails to, and that's the irony of it. That's a tragic irony of this as well. And when we again find that Willie is reliving these memories even after getting fired by Howard, and even after having proven through his own life that that's not how things work. we find that the tragedy gets more and more accentuated. And that's why when you get out on that field today, it's important, because thousands of people will be rooting for you and loving you. And Ben, when he walks into a business office, his name will sound out like a bell and all the doors will open to him. I've seen it, Ben. I've seen it 1,000 times. You can't feel it with your hand like timber, but it's there. He's getting almost defensive over here. He's rejecting the proposition that Uncle Ben had, brought forth many years back. But he's also getting defensive about that. He's getting defensive about that. Not just by showcasing his own career, his own work, but also putting his son in the forefront as a pawn. This is what he's now referring to as this certain school game, to which we will soon be given more details about that. So Willie is also telling Ben that he values Ben's advice much, and there's a new continent at your doorstep, William. You could walk out rich. Yeah, so the whole point is, the emphasis seems to be on the kind of material success that they could reap, whether in New York City or in Alaska. And Willie is very confident that they will do it here too. We'll do it here, Ben. You hear me? We are going to do it here. Yeah. So now again, there's a time shift. We find that he's now reliving this school game for which Biff is also getting prepared for. We're not sure whether these events had happened in the past in such order of succession, just the way Willie is remembering now. But this is how it plays out in his mind at the moment. This is just before the match, and Burnett, who was seen as an anemic child and who was seen as something, a kind of person who was not as liked as Willie's boys are, yeah, and this is Charlie's son too. So Burnett walks in, and this is the Ebbets Field, the game at the Ebbets Field that they are all talking about. So we'll quickly take a look at just a couple of instances over here. So Willie is very, very confident that Biff is going to win. You are coming home this afternoon, captain of the All Scholastic Championship team of the city of New York. But later on in the play, we get to know that Biff didn't quite make it. This also becomes a turning point in Biff's life, after which, in Willie's mind, after which nothing really big happens to him. He's only 17 at this point, and the way in which Willie is talking about this game, he's making a big deal out of it. He's making a big deal in such ways that it also instills a false sense of confidence, a false sense of security in Biff's mind too. There's this brief time when, brief moment when Charlie pretends that he forgot about the game, and Willie is entirely upset about that, and Willie loses his temper about it. Yeah. So in Willie's mind, this is perhaps the biggest thing that could happen to Biff, and which is why these sort of memories also continuously play in his mind, because he's thinking of a number of events, a number of instances which could have become turning points. Yeah, for instance, when Uncle Ben makes his proposition to join him in Alaska and to make a fortune out there, or this moment when his son Biff is about to win the game. So these moments are exaggerated memories in his mind where things could have taken a different turn altogether. And right after that, there is a very, very significant scene that would follow over here, where Willie has this brief encounter, this brief discussion with Burnett, and a lot of things have changed in the meantime. And now when they're talking in the present, Willie is feeling more and more helpless. And he realizes that he is no longer that kind of a figure who could take much pride in his sons. A lot of things have changed, and this is another important scene where he begins to realize that he needs to perhaps have another lens through which he could look at the world. And there are a lot of, even while he's trying to recall, there are a lot of things that he would willingly forget as well. So that's something we will take a look at in detail in the following discussion. So thank you for your time. I encouraged you to read through the remaining sessions in order to understand how the these memories, these manufactured memories, these edited memories and trimmed memories begin to become almost detrimental to Willie's health, and that they keep taking him away from the present. So it also becomes very, very fatal to him in the next few scenes, as we would be seeing in the next couple of sessions. So thank you all for your time, and I will look forward to seeing you in the next session.